Thank you so much. I'll avoid the they saved the best for last cliche right now. I've had a chance to chit-chat with these two gentlemen for the last 15 or 20 minutes, and I feel like just eavesdropping on two guys talking about cars, except it happens to be stuff that could make you a couple million or $1 billion, depending on your asset class. What I'd like to start off with is just a very brief introduction of both the guys who are sitting here next to me, for those of you who don't know. And then by way of how they got into crypto asset investments, let them tell you a little bit more about who they are. So directly to my right is perhaps the only person in the room here who's so cool that he actually has two nicknames. I was trying to figure out how to introduce him. He's either Downtown Josh Brown or Josh the Reformed Broker Brown. He has become quite an influential voice on social media and just very recently made his first Bitcoin purchase. To his right is a member of the old guard, you could say. I've been a Bitcoin investor for quite a bit longer. Howard Linzon is perhaps best known for being the co-founder of StockTwits and has gone on to become also a very influential voice in the venture capital and investment community, generally speaking. I'd like to start off with Howard. Howard, if you could just kind of walk us through what it was that you were doing just before you made your first Bitcoin investment. Give us a lay of the land of StockTwits and where you were and what you were interested in when Bitcoin first came across your table.
Can you hear me in the back? All right. I was fully clothed first time I heard about Bitcoin. Twitter was the company that made me think about Bitcoin because they had the protocol, like the chat idea where people could trade ideas instantly. So in 2007 and 2008, when we were using Twitter, it seemed obvious to me that if you were exchanging ideas, that the next thing would be to link the ideas to cash or to brokerage. So the first idea was, oh my God, Twitter is going to be the next Bloomberg. And flash forward to today, Twitter is not the next Bloomberg. And we could argue all day about that. But Bitcoin came along, I think the first time.
Approximately what year was this?
2007, 2008. The first time I heard about Bitcoin was in Israel, 2010. I made an investment in a company called eToro. And Yoni, the founder of eToro, was bringing Bitcoin to my attention at 12 cents. And unfortunately, I did not buy it at 12 cents. And Yoni has been a Bitcoin bull, and eToro is one of the largest brokerages and crypto exchanges now in the world in 150 countries. But he was talking about Bitcoin in 2010, and unfortunately, I did not buy it that day, but I did adopt early. I think I actually heard a gasp in the audience here when you mentioned the 12-cent price there. Before we let Josh make his introduction here, I want to see if we can wake the audience up here at the end, make sure everyone's paying attention. How many of you have already invested in Bitcoin? If you could raise your hand if you are already a Bitcoin owner. All right, put your hands down. How many of you have already invested in Ethereum? Raise your hand. All right, now keep your hand up if you mean Ethereum Classic. Right. How many people own shares of Apple? So there you go, more Bitcoin shareholders than Apple shareholders.
And last question, how many of you have not invested in any crypto asset at all? There's a couple. Okay, cool. All right, great. Okay, so I just thought it was great to hear an actual gasp at that 12-cent price. Josh, you very recently made your first Bitcoin investment.
You keep saying recently like I fucked up.
In full
disclosure, I don't know, why do you keep saying recently?
In full disclosure, I don't own anything, and it's really difficult.
It was like 5 months ago, which in crypto time is, I'm a veteran.
Walk me.
He's
right. He's right.
I'm in under $2,500.
So go all the way back to 5 months ago.
Right.
You were already reformed. You had already added reformed to the broker of your title.
Yeah.
Could you briefly walk us through what were you doing before you were the reformed broker? When you were just a broker?
All right, I don't want to bore everyone here at Comic-Con, so I'll give you like the condensed version. I was a retail broker for 9 years, and then I dropped my Series 7 when I realized I wasn't helping anyone, and I became an investment advisor, and I run a wealth management firm based in New York, but with offices around the country. And I was a cryptocurrency skeptic. I still am, by the way. But I have this heuristic that served me well over the years. Two of them. The first is, just because I can't see the use for something doesn't mean that other people won't. And I learned that lesson scoffing at Netflix for a number of years. And I learned it prior to that. So that's number one. But then the more important one, I guess, for this audience, if something refuses to be killed, it demands that you pay attention to it. So I wasn't like a skeptic of crypto, like I was like getting on a soapbox and screaming at people, it's a bubble, avoid it. I don't really care that much what other people do. But I started paying attention probably earlier this year after the umpteenth hack where 100 million coins disappeared, and just hearing people still talking about it. And you know, part of me is like, what's wrong with, why are you doing that? We're in a bull market for stocks. Why are you screwing around with that? And this is before the recent run, and it just, people would not let it go, and it just refused to die. Bad press was actually good for it because the media would talk so much about it, and people would get exposed via bad press. There's no such thing as bad press. So like that heuristic has served me well. This thing refused to be killed. So I said, you know what? I'm never going to be informed about this if I don't get my own money in the game and use the apps and just figure it out. So that's what I did. And the Wall Street media went nuts because I think I was one of the first Wall Street people to be not embarrassed, to be like, yeah, I am playing with cryptocurrencies. Like, I'm not embarrassed about it. And I think that opened up, I swear. So Bloomberg wrote it up. This was big news. It wouldn't be news now. This was big news in the summer. Bloomberg wrote it up. Who else? Barron's wrote about it. Like all of the big Wall Street media, they were just like, Wall Street person, Josh Brown is involved in crypto. And I owned it. And I kept buying a little bit each month. Not enough, obviously. But that's where I am. So
this idea of being early or late, I think, is something that we've seen kind of trending throughout the course of the entire day. I perhaps misspoke earlier when I introduced Howard as an early investor. You were considered an early investor in a different space.
Yeah, like the Wright brothers.
I think what Josh is saying is you have to, I think the world that we live in, because I ran a hedge fund for 18 years, and now I invest in startups, mostly financial services, and I was just early. Like I have believed, if you follow my writing for 11 years, I didn't know that Bitcoin was a thing. Obviously, I was shown Bitcoin at 12 cents, and people on StockTwits and Twitter were saying it was overbought at 13 cents.
You would have lost, but I know you would have lost it by now anyway.
Well, I would have had it in Mt. Gox, and I would have had a story about how I lost $3 million in Mt. Gox.
It would have been worse if you had it that early.
Yes. And that's why I carry all my crypto in this bag, because I feel that's why I have this bag. But there's also a very little person in China that has my card, and so I hope he survives. But the most important thing is you never know what the big thing is. So I look at investing more as a trend follower, and so I believe that there was going to be another E-Trade. I believe there was going to be the next big thing that millennials, kids. I own two millennials. I operate two millennials with my wife, and they're out of the house, so that's why I can be here today. They're at college for a few years, and then they'll come back and live with me. But the point is, they are showing me the way. They are not going to have a Wells Fargo account. God bless them. Wells Fargo is a criminal organization. And well, they are. In any other world where there wasn't index investing, Wells Fargo can do what the fuck they want because The next day, it doesn't matter what the stock drops that day. Tomorrow, Vanguard puts an allocation. Betty opens her 401k and puts money into Vanguard S&P like vanilla, and Wells Fargo gets bought. And so something had to happen. So as much fun as Wall Street and we make of all these toys, for me, I knew it was going to happen. I couldn't have predicted it was Bitcoin, even though smart people were telling me. But the way trends work is you're going to hear things 1,000 times. And for me, I keep things really simple. You know, great white shark, pilot fish. If you look at a picture of a great white shark, it's very hard to be the great white shark. That shark, the person that's a great white shark is lucky. You have to attach yourself as close as you can to great white sharks. Any picture that you look up, Google search great white shark, you'll see 100 pilot fish swimming underneath the great white shark. That is a good fucking fish. A pilot fish is a pretty good life, right? You can talk smack. As long as you stay close to the great white shark, you can do what the fuck you want.
Who's the great white shark for you, like Fred Wilson?
Fred Wilson. So when I was told about Bitcoin at 12 cents, and Fred Wilson writes a public blog, he at $100 or $200 wrote that he was investing in Coinbase. If you can't fucking follow people that have a history of being right, that are sharing public information, you don't deserve to be rich. But it's that open and available to you. So in my world, if it's early enough for Fred Wilson to lay claim and Mark Andreessen, and I can tag along on those great white sharks, and it's too early for Jamie Dimon and Warren Buffett, there is a big market in between those. So that's the way I look at this opportunity.
Who's your great white?
Did Fred Wilson tell you to carry it all in a knapsack?
Yeah. Well, he gave me the gut phone number of the midget that carries the other knapsack. The small person. I don't know what it is, but I don't.
Who was your great white? Who was your great white?
Howard Linson. No, I don't have one. It's not because I think I know everything. It's the opposite. I actually find myself very susceptible to quote unquote experts. So I'm constantly in this mode where I'm reminding myself that no one really knows anything. So I don't have like a person that no matter what they do, I'll just do it. I do have people that I've learned a lot from that I've never even met. And then I have mentors in my life, but it doesn't mean, they're investing in something, I'm just going to jump in. Mm-hmm. Because I've just as frequently seen great investors blow themselves up, as we all have, as I've seen them have repeat successes. And I'm not the one that's going to be able to judge, this is the time he's wrong. Imagine the arrogance to be able to say, he's been right for 10 years, this is the one where he's wrong. It's not my shtick. Yeah. So I think for me, I try to be really open-minded. And, I'm not like here to give advice to anyone here. Everyone here is a billionaire already, I get it. But if anyone here is not yet a billionaire, I think this is what I remind myself and I tell my friends, it's okay to miss out on stuff. This may be antithetical to the thrust of what today's conference is about, but someone has to say it. It's okay to be the person that watches other people make all this money and feel like, I missed out. Because we have a long time to go as people. We're going to be here for years, for decades in most cases, judging by what's going on in the room. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to take every risk that comes across your path just because you feel like you're missing out and other people are making all this money. You don't know what goes on in those other people's lives. And there's something called baseline happiness. Does anyone know what that term means, psychology term? So they interview lottery winners. Not that I'm comparing everyone in here to a lottery winner. but they interview lottery winners and they find that the period of time that the lottery winner is the happiest is the moment between when they found out they won and they actually collected the money. And then from there, it's all downhill. Not that they're miserable, or, some of them have financial mishaps, but they're never as happy as they were between learning they won and waiting for the money.
I'm the opposite. I would never be happier.
Yeah.
Until the moment
I want to make that point. I want to make that point because everyone that scores in whatever the next hot token is or whatever, don't assume that they're like living on another planet in terms of happiness. We have a baseline. Our baseline adjusts so fast to our new circumstances in both directions. That's actually a survival trait that's in our DNA, and it works to the downside too. People adjust really quickly So don't assume like people made all this money, you missed out, and they're happier than you. It is not like that, and I deal with millionaires every day.
Josh, instead, thank you. If money itself isn't the only thing that's judging your decision making or the potential to make money, what else are you considering? You talked earlier about what made you a reformed broker was the realization that you weren't doing any good. And Howard talked earlier, gave a rather flowery description of Wells Fargo. Is there a connection here between your involvement and the desire to do good?
Personal. Well, so this is personal. I have a good friend who defends like murderers, like mobsters. He's a high-powered federal cases defense attorney. He's got no problem with what he does, and I'm not in a position to judge him. Me personally, I didn't want to spend any more time making money at something that wasn't helping people in general. So I want to make money, but I figured there's got to be a way to make money and also help other people. And I found it in wealth management in a way that I didn't have it in my prior iteration. So for me, I want to make money. I want to make friends. I want to enjoy the way that I make money. I want to look at my schedule for the day and be like, all right, this is cool. I'm looking forward to this.
Is there any truth to that, Howard? Can we
It's all
help
truth.
people by investing?
I think Josh is right.
I learned a lot of that from Howard. I know Howard for 10 years now, and he actually implanted a lot of that idea of having your lifestyle and your investments dovetail, having your social life and your work life be all one thing and not two completely separate worlds.
Yeah, my wife is here today actually too. So it's like you got to visualize this stuff. I'm not like a self-help person, but when I had the vision to put CNBC on YouTube, the first idea was Wall Strip. I didn't realize this is 2006 and everything on YouTube was a cat video. And so I thought, well, this would be different if we had no cats, and it would be a show about Wall Street, and we would disrupt CNBC.
It was YouTube without the cats.
It was YouTube without the cats, fully clothed people. And CBS bought it before we even really got started. And so when in my next go around, StockTwits, well, I assumed my company would get bought in 6 months by somebody, even Twitter, because we came up with the dollar sign, a way to talk about tickers. So StockTwits is, the second act of what this was, which is just people sharing. The idea, finance, Bitcoin, tokens, all this stuff. These are markets. These are a language that people need to learn. If it means that 100 million people learn about risk and behavioral, how you react around money, then great. If Bitcoin's a thing that teaches this next generation how to behave around money and how to survive and how to trade, then this is great. And so at StockTwits, our goal was to just create this journaling platform for people to chat about stocks all day. Now, I wouldn't have predicted that Bitcoin and Ethereum and I'm trading Augur and EOS and all these tokens. I didn't think that would happen, but really it's just an extension of stocks.
Is it true that Bitcoin is now the number one tweeted tag on StockTwits above the S&P?
Yeah, so for 9 years, $SPY was the number one ticker on StockTwits. So you can guarantee that macro
when did
people.
That flip?
About 3 months ago, $BTC.X on StockTwits has become the number one ticker. So you're talking about Bitcoin,
Why didn't you call me and tell me that?
Because that's inside information, and I would like to trade on it before I tell other people.
You're telling me now.
Is this on? Is this on? No. The point is, it's about do you trust your own instincts? I don't have inside information. I have my own way of looking at the tape. I follow Fred Wilson. I follow Josh Brown. I follow this eclectic group of people on Twitter and StockTwits, and I have this unique data set that's only unique to me. I could blow my brains out if everybody's wrong all the time, but I choose to. There's a saying, there's no such thing as information overload, just filter failure. And so I live by that. I don't remember where I heard it the first time.
What's interesting about...
we have to build our own filters. There's nothing but noise out there.
That your StockTwits feed is in large part comprised of people like the people in this room.
Yeah, I don't judge people by their size or their ethnicity. I judge them by their ideas. Do they have a tendency to be right? I don't care how much you allocate to a stock. I just want to hear your ideas. And if your ideas have a tendency to make sense and be right, I'm going to follow you. And that's the way this next generation of people is going to do it. They're not going to use wealth managers. They're going to have a group of 12 people, they're going to have a group of 20 people, and they're going to fast follow each other, and they're going to weed out the bad ideas, and then they're going to take their losses and move on, or they're going to blow themselves up and start again. But to think that these next generation weren't going to do this, that's the insane part. For Jamie Dimon to get on and judge people and tell people, his own employees, that they shouldn't be doing something seems absurd when he's only there by the grace of us not putting these people in jail the first time around. So it's really, and I'm not doing that to say it. Jamie Dimon's a rich guy and he's got a great life, I'm sure, but I'm saying it just seems silly for people to judge other people that are trading something that is more trustworthy than buying a bank stock where we don't know what the assets are, we don't know what the contingent liabilities are. You know, JP Morgan's spending, I don't know how many billion a year on legal fees. So I think this is the exciting part of Bitcoin and tokens. It's in our hands to screw it up with fraud and all the things that probably are going on, but this is going to happen.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about how you make your actual investing decisions. I find it
the magic 8-ball.
There's this interesting juxtaposition because the audience is here facing you, hoping to learn something about your genius in investing, and you're using StockTwits.
They're going to be disappointed.
That's why they're leaving.
You're using StockTwits to identify trends based on the people in this audience, and you're quite literally going to the crowd for insight.
Yeah, the crowd is the smartest. So wisdom of the crowds, it definitely makes sense. If you're following a bunch of clowns, you're going to not make money. If you're following a bunch of smart people, it could be 3 people, it could be 10 people, it could be 100 people. The Peloton, Tour de France, who wins the race? Whoever drafts the best and has breakaway skills wins the race. But in the real world of investing, which is kind of like the Tour de France, you don't have to wear the yellow jersey. You can make a shit pile of money being in the middle of the pack that's right behind the yellow jersey, and that's the way I try and make money. And so the closer you get to that pack of smart people, the better. And in the world that we live in, luckily, it's a global group of smart people that are connected by their mobile phones and these apps, and group chat, and WhatsApp, and Twitter, and StockTwits, that it's all there for you to get, and you just have to attach yourself to these smart groups.
Josh, where do you identify the trends at the earliest phases?
I think I'm online a lot, probably more than I just turned 40 years old in February, but I find myself interacting with younger people, and I hope I always will. They might not want to interact with me at a certain point. I don't know. How old are you now?
I'm 52.
All right, so I got about 10 years. I got about 10 years then. But I pay attention to what people are talking about, and I stay current on pop culture and. I'm up on all the memes. I know what's going on. I don't know if that helps me be a lights out investing genius. That's not really the goal. But I don't miss things, or I don't miss things for too long. And maybe that's good enough.
Do you ever consider any possible negative impacts that that cryptocurrency or crypto assets, generally speaking, might have on a social level? You both seem to be very strongly compelled by moral judgments and financial judgments. We hear a lot of concern about central banks issuing cryptocurrencies and what that might mean for the ability to control monetary supply. We hear a lot about the age-old complaints about cryptocurrencies. Are there any negative things that you are considering before you make an investment?
No, listen, I think to a certain extent it's exhilarating and it's terrifying. And I think the longer this goes, and by the way, saying like I think that this is going to be a big part of the way transactions are done in the future is not the same as saying I think the price only goes in one direction. Like I think you have to be able to maintain two opposing thoughts in your mind at the same time. Like that's so you could say like the future is bright for cryptocurrency, peer-to-peer transaction, but without saying, I think Bitcoin's going to 80,000. Like, you don't have to say both things. So I'm in the first camp. I don't know, what did Novogratz say his price target is today? What was the
Was it 30, 40? Yeah.
Yeah, I just think you lose credibility. I think if you throw price targets out there, you're part of the problem, not the solution.
Novogratz is a wuss. I'm going to say 41,000.
Yeah, I got 42.
Price is right.
Do I hear 43? I think the point is, it's fun to get up and throw numbers out. None of us know. I think when you make predictions like that, you're just cheapening the whole thing, right? This is a language. This is you don't go into Spain for 2 months without a phone and without knowing the language and expect to have a great time. I think This is a gift.
Well,
Bitcoin,
wait,
Bitcoin
it's
and
deeper than that.
tokens.
Price targets are ridiculous in every.
Oh, I agree, but
they're ridiculous in stocks.
But they're going to happen.
They're
I'm
ridiculous
saying,
in interest rates.
But people want those taglines, and I don't like giving them because nobody knows. I mean, Bitcoin's going to go where it goes. I think you have to understand risk management, but you also have to understand that this is just another market, and human behavior is probably 70% of this, whereas it might have been 50% in stocks because there was fundamentals involved with you could track a balance sheet, etc. In crypto land, we're in a new wild west, so there's going to be all kinds of things that you can't predict.
So here's what's different. In the stock market, you have an entire field called quantitative investing, where people are working with data sets that are 100 years old, and they're able to not know what's going to happen next, but come up with some context for what happens when the market falls 20%. What's the average time it takes to recover? What's the average recovery look like to the upside? And you have a framework, and you could say, okay, this happened 19 times since World War II, and this is the average of what occurred in the following 6 months or 3 years or whatever. Now, a lot of that stuff is just a bedtime story with math, because it could always be different, but at least people have a framework. What we're talking about today, and what everyone is here for today, that does not exist. We are writing that history right now from a very early, in my view, and so that is equal parts exhilarating and terrifying. And I think we all have to be honest with ourselves about that.
Well, and that's where, understanding your own risk tolerance. What's exciting to me is it's all fun checking your account. We had the same feeling in 1999.
Right.
We didn't have a mobile phone, but we were opening up E-Trade or wherever we were.
It was free money.
And
You would wake up.
You'd wake up and just check your account because you knew
Yeah.
you were richer. And I think that's what's the same. I find myself, even a sophisticated investor, and I use sophisticated with quotation marks, but as a sophisticated investor, I'm proud of being right. But at the same time, I realize I'm going to open up my account. Like my wife, who yells at me for selling Bitcoin, I sell some every 1,000 points or whatever, and I don't know.
She yells at you for selling.
She's now, that's the sign of the top.
Buying.
So we're wondering what the signs of the top were. But my wife, who's smart, says, "What are you selling for?" I go, I can't even explain to you what this is yet, and you're yelling at me for selling it. So the point being, you have to understand your own risk profile. This is a giant on-ramp to a new world, and that's exciting. I don't have any price targets, but people really need to try and do this. So it's great that this whole room put up their hand, at least around buying Bitcoin. I run stock events, and people aren't buying stocks. They're buying Vanguard ETFs, so they're not even, people make fun of Bitcoin, but Vanguard ETF, no one can really explain how that's even created. It's just a portfolio of stocks.
So unfortunately, we are actually out of time. I do want to ask you both one final question. We love to talk about how Bitcoin is a non-correlated asset. And media organizations love to see correlations between headlines and price changes. If you were forced to pick, in the last 6 months, what is the most significant event that has impacted the price of Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency?
Well, it's obvious it's Trump. This is a vote against what we feel, right? It's a very private thing, Bitcoin, right? Nobody theoretically knows, and Zcash and all these private things. This is people voting that they don't like what they see, and from Wells Fargo and Equifax. This is a vote. And Bitcoin's a way for people to vote, say, fuck you. And you're seeing it. And so to predict when that ends, it's a way for the battered person to own something that's, I don't know about uncorrelated or correlated. I think it is uncorrelated. When you get 1 million people trading something that has nothing to do with the S&P, that's uncorrelated. Or 10 million
Josh,
people.
we've got Trump, Wells Fargo, and Equifax in that list there. What would you put as the single most important event?
Just a quick flashback to the Jamie Dimon thing, and I have a lot of respect for Jamie, and I'm a shareholder of JP Morgan. But I think when he came out and blasted it as vociferously as a person can, there were 9 headlines on Bloomberg in a row of his comments, and it fell for 8 hours and then recovered because the world doesn't care what somebody from a 19th century institution thinks anymore. And I think that that was probably the most notable thing, because if there weren't a real groundswell of true grassroots interest in this, it probably would not have recovered, or it would have taken longer. This was a blip, and I think that that tells you this thing refuses to die. Not that price alone is the only thing. Volumes went up too, new accounts opening. So I think that that was very notable, and we'll point to that for years to come.
Thank you both. Round of applause, please.